Hello, very beautiful community. So, Mr. Ratcliffe, the head of the CIA, went for an 8.5 hour trip to Moscow, which was, what did Trump say about it? It was semi-routine. Let's talk about what thoughts it's helpful for us to have about that event. But put a bit of context first of all, right, on the map. The gulf between Europe and the United States is growing, right, and confidence is falling about the United States as a security guarantor for Europe. And the United States is the heart of the NATO alliance. So this is difficult. The Russians know this. The Russians are going to try to take advantage of this. And the Russians are also keen on the thought that, well, the Europeans themselves might be next to Trumpicize themselves in their politics. And then that's a bit of a win for Putin, a big win for Putin. This is really for sort of security and military experts, but there is a semblance of an escalation of sabotage. Attacks in Europe, some of which are more obviously, some of which are less plausibly attributable to the Russians. Perhaps the most dramatic event was the event that passed off relatively benignly at Leipzig airport, but we've got stories coming from Bulgaria, Estonia, Italy, France, Netherlands about sabotage. Poland. So this is a pattern. And I think that there is a very important balance psychologically for you to strike as Western citizens, as European citizens. On the one hand, you don't want to engage in a conspiracy theory mindset where your cat gets diarrhea and it's the Russians. On the other hand, I still think that Europeans are not quite psychologically prepared for a mass casualty Russia-sponsored act of sabotage or terrorism in Europe. And I think that that is plausibly coming. And it's very important when we think about what the intent of the Kremlin it would be with action like that we don't just think the point is, well, they're causing us pain so that we stop doing mean things to them like supporting Ukraine. Because the point is much more political. It's about something happening and then us not being able to agree on what it was and then not being able to agree on what to do about it and engaging in conflict about it, right? So the point of an action like that is not to demonstrate to us a kind of price, though that's an aim too, but that's the second aim. It's the second aim. Hey guys, you keep doing this, there's going to be more of a cost. The first aim is to actually generate political conflict about it, which then leads to the delegitimation of democratic institutions, which are a farce in Putin's view, and about time they all collapsed. They're not a farce, but they can collapse, and that's a problem for us. So that understand that that's the aim. It's toxic political conflict around what this even was and what to do about it. That is number one. The cost, the pain of the cost is number two. Now, Ratcliffe is relatively hawkish on Russia, and he didn't go to Russia to negotiate anything, right? And it's not really my expertise to talk about why he would have gone there, so I'm going to keep this to broad brush strokes. Obviously, there is the possibility of Iran being raised. Iran is the biggest headache for Trump at the moment. And Russia supporting Iran in various ways is not nice for Trump. But why would Russia stop supporting Iran? What are they going to get in exchange for supporting Iran less? But Iran is a possible item on the table for that visit, but if we had to guess more plausibly, it might be about escalation management. And escalation management is about two things. Telling the Russians, we think you might be up to some stuff. Can you please not do that? And if you do, we're going to have to do that in response. But it's also about giving clarity to the Russians about what the United States will not do and what the United States will not facilitate Ukraine to do. So that's also a possible topic of clarification and conversation, right? Ukraine is going to keep escalating the war on Russian soil, but there are certain kinds of possible operations for Ukraine and Russian soil that we're going to draw a line at, and we won't indulge those. We won't support those. Doesn't necessarily mean we can stop them, but maybe to a degree it does. So don't do the bad thing, because we'll do that in response, and let's clarify where certain boundaries here lie. It's always a very difficult conversation when the United States talks about respecting Russia's red lines, because Russian red lines are terribly informalized. They're not clearly available, actually, to the Russian leadership itself. Their red lines begin to, shine bright red only when the regime is at risk. And most of the red line rhetoric you get from Moscow is a bit of political technology, about which we talked on the main channel a few months ago. So you just watch that video. I won't repeat myself. So therefore, I'm mildly, but not more than mildly, alarmed about the nature of this visit, without us knowing exactly what it was all about, unless something has come up in the last hour or two before I jumped on to speak with you. So that's my orientation of the situation for us. We understand that Mr. Ratcliffe didn't meet Mr. Putin. He probably didn't talk to Mr. Putin, although nobody has ruled out the possibility that they may have had a phone conversation during these 8.5 hours. But the question arises, well, why couldn't this have been discussed as part of the course of the regular communication between Mr. Ratcliffe and Mr. Narishkin? And that suggests that there is something additional there, and there's both an element of reassurance and alarm about the implication of Trump's remark that it was semi-routine, right? So it sounds like you're not talking about anything too catastrophic, but it also sounds like you're not quite talking about something just routine. The central takeaway for us in the end, to finish with, is the escalation of Russian hybrid operations on European territory as something we should expect, right? And we should expect that one of those might well create a mass casualty event. That's a reasonable expectation. And it is going to be important for the Kremlin to tentatively escalate, given the kinds of challenges and dynamics they are dealing with. Lots of love and talk very soon.